I was in the middle of a Tuesday morning meeting when my phone buzzed. Sarah's name lit up the screen. We'd been together for 18 months and she knew I was presenting to the board that day, so I figured it was a good luck message. I swiped to read it during a bathroom break. God, I can't wait to be done with this. Another 3 months tops and I'll have enough connections through his firm to make the jump. Plus the lease ends in January, so perfect timing. You guys were so right about the rent thing. Why pay when someone's desperate enough to cover it? Faced with tears of joy, my hands went cold. I read it again. Then again. This wasn't meant for me. I scrolled up through our conversation history. Normal girlfriend messages. Miss you. Can't wait for dinner tonight. Love you. The usual things that had made me believe I was building something real. But this new message, this was something else entirely. I stood in that bathroom stall for what felt like an hour but was probably 5 minutes. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Someone washed their hands at the sink. The automatic paper towel dispenser whirred. Normal sounds, but everything had changed. My phone buzzed again. Oh, and you wrong person, delete, delete, delete. Then, please tell me you didn't see that. Then, babe? You there? That was from my sister. Inside joke. Call me? I turned off my phone and went back to the meeting. I gave my presentation. I answered questions. I smiled when the CFO complimented the quarterly projections. And the entire time I felt like I was watching myself from very far away. That evening I did something I'm not proud of. I went through Sarah's laptop while she was in the shower. She'd left it open on the kitchen counter and I knew her password anyway. She'd given it to me months ago, another sign of trust that now felt like a stage prop. I found the group chat. It was called The Coven and included her 3 closest friends. I started scrolling. The messages went back months. He's so easy to manipulate, it's almost boring. Mentioned I loved that restaurant once and now he takes me there constantly. Nail polish. Girl, milk it. My ex never took me anywhere that nice. Speaking of milk, convinced him to cover my half of utilities too. Said my freelance income was irregular. He bought it immediately. Queen behavior. What about that promotion you wanted? Getting there. His boss loves him and I've been playing the supportive girlfriend at company events. Already got introduced to 3 senior partners. One of them works in trademark law, exactly where I need to be. Once I secure a referral, I'm out. How much you think you've saved total? Honestly? Between rent, utilities, dinners, that trip to Vermont, the loan for my car repairs that I'll never pay back. Probably close to 15 grand? Plus priceless networking. And he has no idea? Please. He's so in love he'd probably donate a kidney if I asked. It's actually kind of pathetic. I closed the laptop. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady. Sarah came out of the bathroom in my old college t-shirt, her hair wet, smiling that smile I'd thought was genuine. Hey you. How was the presentation? Good, I said. Really good. I'm so proud of you. She kissed my cheek. Want to order Thai food? Sure. I ordered the food. We ate it. We watched a show. She fell asleep with her head on my lap, and I sat there in the blue glow of the television, planning. Here's what Sarah didn't know about me. I'm methodical. I'm patient. And I don't make emotional decisions, I make strategic ones. It's what made me successful at my firm. It's what was about to make her regret ever thinking I was pathetic. The next morning I started making calls. First call, my landlord. We had a lease in both our names, but I'd been paying the full amount for the past year. I explained I wanted to transfer to a 1-bedroom in the same building. There happened to be a vacancy. The landlord liked me. I'd never been late on rent, never complained, never caused problems. He was happy to accommodate. I signed the new lease effective in 2 weeks. The old lease would not be renewed. Sarah's name would not be on the new one. Second call, utilities. Everything was in my name. I scheduled disconnection for the day before I moved. Third call, my boss. I told him I needed to speak with him privately. In his office, I explained that I'd been dating someone who'd been using company events for networking purposes under false pretenses, and that I needed to ensure it didn't reflect poorly on the firm. I was vague but professional. He appreciated the heads up and agreed that she should no longer be included in company events. He also casually mentioned he'd make sure the senior partners knew she was no longer affiliated. 4th through 7th calls, every senior partner at my firm that Sarah had met. Casual conversations. Hey, I wanted to give you a heads up that Sarah and I have parted ways. Just didn't want any awkward situations if she reaches out professionally. Yes, thanks for understanding. No, nothing dramatic, just didn't work out. Appreciate it. I made these calls over the course of 3 days. Sarah noticed nothing. She was busy, she said, working on her portfolio, building her brand, meeting with potential clients. I smiled and nodded and asked supportive questions. The following Tuesday, I took a personal day. Sarah thought I was at work. Instead, I systematically moved every single item I owned out of our apartment. I'd hired movers. Professional, efficient, silent. By 2 p.m., my new apartment was furnished. The old apartment had Sarah's things and only Sarah's things. I left the keys on the kitchen counter. No note. Then I blocked her number. Blocked her on every social media platform. Blocked her email. Blocked her friends. I'd prepared for this. I downloaded every message, every email, every photo from the group chat. Backed it all up. Just in case. Around 5 p.m., my landline rang at the new apartment. I'd kept it for work purposes. It was Sarah's number showing up from when she tried to call from someone else's phone. I didn't answer. She called 17 times that evening. The next day she showed up at my office. Security stopped her at the front desk. I'd already informed them I was no longer in a relationship and to please not allow her access. She called from the lobby. I didn't answer. That evening she figured out my new address, probably from the forwarding address I'd left with the post office. She buzzed my apartment. I didn't respond. She waited outside the building. I saw her from my window. She stood there for 2 hours before finally leaving. Here's what Sarah didn't know. The landlord had already filed for the unpaid rent that would come due. She had 30 days from the lease end to vacate. She'd be responsible for the full amount. $1,500 she'd gotten used to not paying. Her utilities would shut off in 10 days. Her car repairs, that I'd loaned her money for? I'd structured it through Venmo with clear notes, loan for car repairs. I filed a small claims court case. It was $1,100. I had documentation. But the real consequences were just beginning. See, Sarah worked as a freelance graphic designer and she'd been barely scraping by, hence the need to exploit me in the first place. Her entire plan had hinged on using my connections to break into trademark and brand law consultation. Without those referrals, without those senior partner connections, she had nothing. She was back to competing with 10,000 other freelancers for low-paying gigs. The senior partner she'd been particularly focused on, the trademark specialist, he actually reached out to me a week later. We got coffee. He mentioned Sarah had sent him a cold email asking about opportunities. He deleted it without responding, he said, because after our conversation he checked around and heard she was trouble. Heard she was trouble. From whom? From the other partners I'd spoken to. From my boss. The whisper network in our industry is small and efficient. Sarah had been effectively blacklisted from the exact niche she'd spent 18 months trying to infiltrate. I learned all this through mutual acquaintances. I never spoke to Sarah directly again. Through that same network, I heard she'd had to move back in with her parents in another state. She'd lost the apartment, couldn't make rent. She tried to take me to small claims court for emotional damages and wrongful eviction, but she had no case. The lease was ending anyway. I had documentation of everything. The case was dismissed. The loan repayment case, however, went through. She owed me $1,100 plus court fees. I received a payment plan judgment. $50 a month for 2 years. Her friends from the coven tried to reach out to me on her behalf. One of them sent a long message about how I was cruel and vindictive, how Sarah was struggling, how I'd ruined her life over a misunderstanding. I replied once and only once. I sent her a screenshot of the group chat messages. All of them. Months worth. The calculations of money saved. The jokes about my stupidity. The casual cruelty. Then I blocked her too. The strangest part wasn't the anger I felt. Anger would have been normal, expected. The strangest part was how quickly the anger faded into something else. Disappointment? Disappointment that someone I'd trusted, someone I'd built a life with, someone I'd imagined a future with, had seen me as nothing more than a resource to be extracted and discarded. 6 months later, I ran into one of Sarah's friends, not from the coven but someone more peripheral. We ended up talking over coffee. She told me Sarah had moved to Arizona, living with her parents, working retail while trying to rebuild her design portfolio. She was bitter, apparently. Told everyone I'd destroyed her career over nothing. Over nothing? I asked. The friend had the grace to look uncomfortable. I saw the messages you sent. What she did was wrong. But, did you have to go that far? I thought about that question for a long time. Did I have to systematically dismantle every advantage she'd built? Did I have to salt the earth behind me? Yes, I finally said. I did. Because here's what I realized in those quiet weeks after I left. Sarah hadn't just used me for money or connections. She'd used my feelings. She'd performed love, convincingly, while laughing about my gullibility behind my back. She'd made me doubt my own judgment, my own ability to trust. And the worst part? She'd planned to do it for just long enough to get what she needed, then disappear. On her timeline. With her narrative. Probably painting me as the bad guy somehow, the controlling boyfriend she'd finally escaped. I didn't give her that. I gave her consequences. A year later, I started dating again. Her name was Jennifer, and she was a veterinarian who owned her own practice. On our third date, she insisted on paying. On our fifth date, she told me her rule. Everything split evenly until we decided to move in together, at which point we'd merge finances properly with full transparency. I don't believe in keeping score, she said, but I also don't believe in taking advantage. Relationships should be equitable. I almost laughed. Almost told her the whole story right then. But I didn't. That was old history. Old damage. Instead, I just said, I agree completely. We're engaged now. Jennifer knows the story, I told her eventually, months into our relationship. She listened quietly, then said, good. She needed to learn that actions have consequences. But also, you need to make sure you've actually healed from that. She was right, of course. I hadn't just been protecting my assets when I dismantled Sarah's plans. I'd been protecting my ego. My pride. My sense of self-worth that she'd casually shredded. It took therapy to untangle that. To understand that I could be both justified in my actions and damaged by what had happened. That removing someone from your life completely, cutting off every avenue they might use to harm you again, isn't necessarily vengeance. Sometimes it's just survival. But here's what I think about late at night sometimes. Sarah made a choice. She chose to see another person as a tool, a stepping stone, a convenient resource. She chose to mock someone who cared about her. She chose to plan an exit strategy before even giving the relationship a real chance. I just made sure her choice came with a price tag. People ask if I regret how I handled it. If I think I went too far. If I feel guilty. The honest answer? No. Not even a little bit. Because Sarah didn't accidentally use me. She didn't make a mistake in a moment of weakness. She systematically, deliberately, over the course of 18 months, extracted value from my life while giving nothing genuine in return. She documented it, laughed about it, made it a group activity. That accidental text didn't reveal a moment of doubt or a temporary moral lapse. It revealed exactly who she was when she thought no one was watching. I just made sure everyone was watching. And sometimes, late at night, I imagine she's working that retail job in Arizona, and her phone buzzes and it's one of her friends from the coven, and they're laughing about some new guy one of them is dating, some new scheme one of them is running. And I imagine Sarah reading those messages and thinking about how easily plans fall apart. How quickly the person you're using can become the person who destroys everything you've been building. I imagine she finally learned what I already knew. Underestimate people at your own risk. The pathetic ones, the easy ones, the ones so in love they'd donate a kidney? We're the dangerous ones. Because we remember, we plan, and we have nothing left to lose. That Tuesday morning when my phone buzzed with that accidental text, Sarah didn't just send a message to the wrong person. She sent a confession to the only person who could hold her accountable. And I did.